To hire drivers, you've got to work fast and smart. Did you know Driver Pulse, a driver-facing mobile app from 10th Street, is 2 to 3 times more effective than texting and 4 to 5 times more effective than email at getting drivers to respond? Driver Pulse is the largest source of free driver applications in trucking, downloaded by almost 2 million drivers to find jobs, complete training, and communicate with carriers. Companies find who they're looking for, and drivers find their homes with Driver Pulse from 10th Street. A name you trust. That's 10street.com. TEN street.com.
Welcome back to another edition of Check Call. Today we're covering all things technological advancement and automation. Don't forget to subscribe to Check Call, the newsletter, on FreightWaves.com if you haven't already. Before we get into our guest interview, there's some news in the world that you should check out. The California Senate joined the state assembly in overwhelmingly voting to ban heavy-duty driverless trucks on state highways. Whether to sign or veto the bill is now up to Governor Gavin Newsom. The government, through Newsom's business office, has been critical of Assembly Bill 316, but he has not said what he will do. The former San Francisco mayor is a big technology backer, but also courts labor unions, which are the loudest voices behind this legislation. Essentially, the bill, which passed on last Monday in a 36-2 vote, requires that autonomous trucks weighing more than 10,001 pounds have human safety drivers in the cab. Other provisions would allow legislators to take place of state agencies like the Department of Motor Vehicles and the California Highway Patrol. The state assembly passed the bill 69-4 in May. Heavy-duty trucks weighing more than 10,001 pounds are in autonomous testing in Texas, New Mexico, and approved in more than 20 other states. Only time will tell if other states follow the lead of California. This week's sonar chart of the show is the market look at Seattle. Capacity is tightening in Seattle as outbound tender rejections rise, increasing 289 basis points week over week. Not only is the O-Tri rising, but outbound tender volumes are on the rise as well, a 23.8% increase week over week. While outbound tender rejections have risen to match the national average of 4.32%, spot rates will not be increasing a significant amount in Seattle. Some change from last week, but a few cents per mile. Today we are joined by Kevin Nadeau, founder and president of True Load Time. Welcome back to the show, Kevin.
Hi, Mary. Thanks for having me.
I'm pretty excited about today. So we've pretty much gone down the rabbit hole of detention and, ways to advocate for drivers and, as a shipper being better about your detention time. Today, we're going to kind of peek behind that curtain and come up with some of those technological things that you can implement to make it more efficient for improving detention times. So I guess what are kind of some of those common processes that people use to help automate and speed things up in the warehouse to reduce detention times?
Sure. Okay. There are a bunch of them. I had to make some notes, so I'm going to be reading some of these bullet points, but I tried to I put them in 3 different categories: warehousing, trucking, and I gave safety its own categories. I think that's it's a critical component of on our nation's roadways. So for warehouses, you've got product movement like conveyor systems. You've got the goods storage, vertical and horizontal stackers and cranes and things like that. The truck loading, unloading process, inbound inspection point, like automating the QC, order picking, inventory control, warehouse management, appointment scheduling, check-in processes, yard dock management. I mean, that's already 9 categories for the warehouse itself. There technologies exist to automate. On the trucking side, I've got 9 categories for them as well. Driver recruiting, onboarding, DQS, fleet preventative maintenance, on assets, RFPs, route planning, driver dispatching, fuel efficiency, driver training, coaching, asset tracking devices. And then on the safety side, ADAS, or advanced driver assist systems. Man, there are a bunch of technologies kind of clumped into that, like advanced driver braking systems, lane departure, forward collision warnings, electronic stability control, stationary merge assistant, blind spot detection, rollover stability control, of course, cameras, forward and rear facing, technologies that identify risky driver behaviors like overspeeding, excessive speeding, harsh braking, harsh quartering, accident scene investigation, accident file registry, post-accident training, and DOT safer score monitoring. So 3 categories with a couple of dozen technologies that exist for those for warehousing, trucking, and of course, safety.
So just basically just a few simple things that someone could walk away and implement.
Do you remember our previous episode when I made the statement, you can spend as little or as much money as you want on technology? There you go.
Just start picking categories. So you've got about 18 to 36 options to choose from right here.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I guess if I were to go out and get 30, I would hope that I wouldn't have to get 36 different kinds of technology. I would like to think that some of those can, do more than one thing. But I guess if I go out and I, make my drivers more safe, and I make everything more safe and more efficient, especially on a warehouse side or any point in that, what you have just talked about, what kind of benefits do I get from that visibility and tracking side, if I get any?
Yeah. So I think the big thing to keep in mind is, yes, there are a ton of different products out there to help automate, create efficiency. But if they're not interconnected, if they're not speaking to one another, if they're not transmitting data back and forth, if you have all these disparate systems scattered about your operation, you're still going to struggle, even if you've automated this piece. So it's important that all these things talk to each other as much as possible. Having a central command system that can coordinate, all these different technologies is vital, whether that's a TMS, a WMS, or ERP system, whatever that looks like. But implementing one or more of those things, if done in the right way and rolled out to your colleagues and your team, will make an incredible difference. It really depends on where you want to focus and what it is you're trying to accomplish. And I think that's the hardest part, is identifying which beachhead to land on first and attack. Pardon my military puns. It's definitely top of mind for me. This week that we're recording is the week of 9/11. I'm a former military veteran. So I've definitely been thinking about our brothers and sisters in arms out there, whether stationed stateside or overseas. I do want to just take a minute to say thank you so much for your service. Thank you for defending us and keeping us safe. We are definitely here and praying for you. And, God bless.
I will wholeheartedly second that. No amount of words are grateful enough for everything that those in the military are doing. So we very much appreciate their service and dedication. Moving into something that I don't know if it's been brought up in the military or not, but you'd probably know the answer to it. Artificial intelligence. What kind of future do you see AI playing in our supply chain?
Certainly AI is a huge buzzword right now, both in the transportation space and in the entrepreneurial, venture funding, venture capital space. Lots of money being poured into that sector. Of course, there are a couple of front runners who kind of trailblazing right now and bringing that to the forefront. But I think with AI, the first things first, you got to have a large data set to work with. AI isn't just a program you write. It has to have a large language model to derive its info from, which can be challenging for some of the smaller companies out there. But the good news is a lot of your major TMS providers are already working on this, and they have these large data sets that they can pull from. So if you are one of their customers, I'm sure they will be deploying some of this, and a lot of them already have. You'll probably start to see it first in the RFPs and potentially in the routing. I think those are the easiest ones to do. They can take data from across the industry and help you calculate what good rates ought to look like, ought to be, bring in factors like wait time, which is something that, of course, we're incredibly passionate about, as well as weather and traffic and historical trends and things like that. And then the same thing with the route planning, taking all those things into account to build a route that is achievable from the driver or for the driver. Doesn't stress them out, doesn't require that they do anything potentially unsafe. So I think you'll first see the technologies there when it comes to AI. It's just utilizing the data that already exists to help make quicker decisions. And I think the goal for AI should be not to replace our human operators, but to provide them more options. It shouldn't. Some of the things you can automate and put on autopilot, and it just does them. But I think AI should exist to give us options, so that it says, "Hey, here's your ABC. Choose which one makes sense for you," just to help us speed up. And if a dispatcher has 20 drivers, maybe with AI, they can oversee 25 or 30, something like that.
And that brings up something that you talked about a little bit ago where, you really need to know what your destination is before you start everything. Because if you go get technology, if you go get a software, if you go and say, I want AI, so I'm going to set up this AI thing, what purpose is it going to serve? What is that end goal that it's going to have? Because you don't want to go and buy all this fancy software and technology and get this great AI tool if it's not going to end up helping you solve that original thing. So I think, one of the first things, if you're looking at warehouse improvement or any sort of improvement processes is, sit down and take a look at what you have and say, all right, well, this is what I have. This is what I want it to be. And then look for something in there to do it. Because if you go out asking software providers, well, suddenly they have all the solutions to your needs and it might not actually be what you're looking to solve,
That's right. Yeah, in the software world, sometimes we build stuff and then we go out and look for a problem that it can solve.
Exactly. It's one of those where you have to know the destination before you get on the road to go. You have to tell Google where to drive you to.
That's right.
So going along with that, when you start warehouse improvements or really any kind of improvements, I don't know why I just keep saying warehouse, but when you start those improvements, you really need to have that data component of it. You need to have, a way that, this is working, this is not working. And so when it comes to that decision making, what is the importance of that big data analytic and some of those predictive analytics as well? Because that's going to help you, forecast your demand, identify trends. What role does big data play in this overall supply chain performance improvement?
Yeah, big data is everything. I mean, if you're doing any type of machine learning or AI, you have to have a data set to feed it. The challenge is that data can be inherently biased unless we're talking about like telematics-driven data, stuff that isn't subjective. So you are dependent upon, the validity of the data. Was it an automated workflow? Was the data flowing directly from a telematics, an ELD, a track and trace program, or was it manually input by an operator somewhere? But so that's the foundation of everything. I mean, without a large data set to pull from, it's not really AI, in my opinion. And it also needs to be diverse. It's great to have your own intel, but again, some of the stuff we've talked about before, your information in its own little bubble is great doing post-mortem analysis. But if we're really trying to do anything predictive, I need to see my data, but I also need to see the rest of the industry because I need to know, is my operation a little bit unique? Am I experiencing things that are greater or less than some of the others in my industry or, my peers? And then the last thing, again, I made this point earlier, is everything has to talk to one another. It's got to be connected. For so long, we operated with these massive data silos. It's sitting in my TMS, or it's sitting in my WMS, or it's over here in this software program. And big data just doesn't work that way. If your data isn't in the cloud somewhere, it's going to be really hard to do some of these really sophisticated things that some of these technology vendors have. If everything is stored on your server in the back room somewhere, you're going to be at a bit of a disadvantage.
That kind of goes with something that I've always said. You can collect as much data as you want. You can, go out there and get as much software as you want to manipulate it. But until you have someone to sit there and analyze and interpret that data and create like an actionable plan from it, you're just are buying really expensive toys to sit on a shelf.
Yeah, that's right. And the challenge is it can't be data overload. Analysis paralysis is a real thing. You can track just about anything in supply chain logistics. It's just, what should you be tracking? What should you be looking at? What What red flags should be coming across your desk? What does your dashboard look like? Again, identify what's important in your operation. What are the things that you need to know that are going to impact the bottom line? And those are the things you need to be tracking on a daily or an hourly basis. Build your technologies and your infrastructure around that. Work to automate those processes first. Get the need to haves. Invest in those first before you come across the nice to haves. And again, remember that technology isn't a one and done. It's constantly evolving. So it's not a situation where you have to go out and buy the entire purse. Start with one area and work on that, and then move on to the next.
That's a very good point. One of my favorite things to say is automate what you hate. So if you know that you have a bunch of operations support people that maybe hate calling incessantly to get drivers' locations, well, maybe get like a text message notification that you can send out to them that they can just, say, we're right here, it's all good. Or, if you hate getting phone calls of drivers sitting at a shipper waiting because they won't get loaded, maybe get some analytics into improving detention times.
I like that. I'm going to use that one. Automate what you hate. I like that.
It makes so much sense, because if you sit there, if those because more than often than not, those pain points are those time waster tasks that me as an individual on the floor, I don't make money off doing tasks. I don't make money off of verifying signed BOLs and putting things in a system and, calling a driver for the 100th time asking where they are. Those are not like revenue generating tasks. So if I can find a way to just get them off my plate and, make it someone else's problem, or make it not my problem at all, and I just have to manage a handful of exceptions, that'd be great. So I think that really, when in doubt of knowing where to start, you may have all this data, and like you mentioned, that analysis paralysis, then just sit down and say, okay, well, what do you hate the most about your job? Because there will always be something, and there will always be some mundane task that more often than not, you can write a script or get something or unlock some feature that you already have on a system, and just it never got fully integrated correctly. Just finish that integration, and then suddenly it's not as much of a problem.
Yeah, totally agree. Sorry, I chuckled there. You made a comment about having to call a driver for the 100th time for a check call. That never happens, does it?
No, not at all. It's not the reason that we have patented the crazy ex-girlfriend method, where it has to be used only for dire circumstances. Like, you can't do this all the time. Because it will piss the driver off. You have to use it only under extreme circumstances, and that is every minute for 15. Like, if they're calling and just like, if you're calling and they're not answering, call them incessantly. Like, call, hang up, call, hang up, call, hang up, call, hang up, until they answer. They will eventually answer, because they can't do anything on their phone because you are blowing them up. So, but also make sure that you know that your driver is not sleeping while this happens, because if you do it and they're sleeping, then they will be twice as mad. So it works, but just know that you are going to piss them off.
Important notes for any carriers out there, that will not lead to improved driver satisfaction score.
Exactly. Your driver's going to be angry. Your broker's going to be angry. Your shipper's going to be angry. No one wants to come to that last resort. But if I need to know where something is and people are losing their minds about it, I'm going to call you incessantly until you answer. I think my record's about 15 minutes of just calling, hang up, call, hang up, call, hang up, call, hang up. Like,
yeah,
I have nothing but time when I'm getting yelled at.
Well, on a serious note, we are recording during the week of National Truck Driver Appreciation Week. So on a serious note, I do want to say thank you to all the professional men and women out there. Thank you so much for what you do. We recognize that it is definitely a challenging industry, a challenging job that you do day in and day out. Thank you for being out there, staying away from family, running up and down the roads for us. Thank you for the hours that you put in. Thank you for all the frustration that you probably put up with at some of these locations. Thank you for the sleeping in rest stops and eating meals there, things like that. I think every day should be Truck Driver Appreciation Day. But as it stands right now, we have a week just to get out there and say thank you. And I hope that someone out there has told you personally, thank you for what you have done I hope they shaking your hand, maybe purchased a meal for you or giving you a pat on the back. But if they haven't, I want to be the first to do that. So thank you so much.
I wholeheartedly concur. Again, it is Truck Driver Appreciation Week. I know that this episode will come out next week, but it's no secret that I think every week should be Truck Driver Appreciation Week just because they do so much. And more often than not, when something goes wrong, they're the first one blamed, whether it was their fault or not. So it's one of those where, our drivers are out there doing very, very hard things. And that's why you should not call them incessantly, but also drivers answer the phone, maybe. It's not going to be that bad. But I think, now, especially this week or this year, more awareness has come to driver issues and consistent things that people are having. So I'm very optimistic that over the next year or two, we can start making some actual improvements. So drivers aren't sleeping on the entrance ramps to highways, and there's, truck parking for everyone, and someone can use the bathroom at a shipper, because I did not know that was such a problem until I started doing this job.
Agreed. It's the little things that we take for granted that our drivers have to deal with that they just shouldn't. And I'm with you. I'm very optimistic. I'm hopeful that the calls on Washington that are coming up, especially with regards to truck parking, will yield some fruit. And we can do better. And I think now there's a lot of people rowing in the same direction. And I'm hopeful that we'll get some good benefits.
We can and we should do better for our drivers. And because they're people, people deserve the ability to use the restroom when and where they need to.
Common decency, right?
Exactly. All right. So we are running out of time, but it is our favorite time of the episode. This week, Kevin, we're hitting with 2 questions because why not? We just need to get to know you intimately. So the first one is, if you could only eat one color of food for the rest of your life, what would you choose?
Oh, gosh. Okay, not the healthiest answer, but I think you can't go wrong with a light brown, because you can bread and fry just about anything and turn it light brown, and it just gives you so many options. I'm a big French fry fan. So, fries would be one of my last meals. So, if I can get a light brown French fry, maybe some okra, cube steak, country fried steak, fried chicken. Think of all the light brown food out there.
It is the best. It's the most diverse option, but it is not the healthiest.
No, not at all.
All right. So then our second question for you this week is, what animal would you choose to be your personal assistant?
Oh, how about this? A hummingbird.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and the reason why, been in logistics for over 20 years now, and we move really fast. We're running from problem to problem. I think if I have an animal assistant, it needs to be able to keep up with both my mental train of thought and my physical movement. So I picture a little hummingbird just able to, kind of hang with me and, run out here and there, something like that. So, yeah, let's go with a hummingbird.
I actually really like that. We've not heard that one yet, but it makes a lot of sense, especially if you're on the go and doing things quickly. I like that. So if anyone has questions about your food choice or your animal choice, or really just any kind of ways they can help improve some efficiency on their side, where can they find you outside the show?
Yeah, guys, you can find me at 10street.com. We come check out the website. We have a whole portfolio of products, from driver onboarding to recruiting to safety, obviously true load time, facility wait time. We have True Fuel, trucking efficiency. So check out 10street.com. You can find me there along with everything else that we provide. And as always, LinkedIn, feel free to shoot me a direct message there. And I look to hear from you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today, Kevin.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Find Check Call the Podcast anywhere you get your podcasts, like Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Don't forget to check out all the other incredible FreightWaves podcasts, such as Loaded and Rolling and Rethinking Reshoring. Don't forget to subscribe to the newsletter on freightwaves.com/checkcall. See you on the internet.